Hello and welcome. My partner's in crime, and I say that in the nicest possible way, I just love it actually. Listen, I have to apologise actually for this 17th of March. It was the day, or the day before, I was doing the Lennon murder, and I had absolutely terrible issues with Premiere Pro editing stuff, so the whole of that day was taken up with other things. Now, being half Irish myself, I really need to apologise that I didn't say anything, or put up a post or say anything about St Patrick's Day. So everyone, I know it's late, so belated happy St Patrick's Day, and soon when we're all out of this lockdown, as we are, I will be celebrating that, probably along with many others that will be out on that day celebrating. So I really like to apologise for that. Okay, let's get straight on to this case. Now this case is the case of the Clydach murders, and again I'm going to apologise for my accent and how I pronounce things, because this is just the way I am. I have lots of different accents in here: London, Irish, Australian, and it's all going on, and Welsh is not one of them, any language that I speak. And everyone knows that I go to Wales a lot. I absolutely love Wales. I love the Welsh people. I love them, and I'm always in Carmarthen. I'm always in, and I'm so happy they've reopened actually. I'm always in the old courthouse cafe there, which I absolutely love every time I go. So I really apologise if any of my pronunciations in this video, I don't really mean to be disrespectful to anybody. So I hope you think that's okay. So just bear with me on some of the pronunciations of that. So listen, this is the Clydach murder case. It is about a murder of this, three generations of people in one home. And this case is a shocking case for many reasons. One, because I've already stated that it wasn't just a murder, it's like a massacre in this house of what happened to these people. And I don't mean any disrespect when I speak about any of the people that have passed away, any of the victims. I would usually do everything I can not to say anything about victims in any derogatory way at all, and so there's no offence should be taken. But when you're looking into a case, especially a case that may be a miscarriage of justice and has questions, really it's questionable, this conviction here, really. I think we have to look at the people's, or the victim especially, one of the victims in this case, of her lifestyle and other things that were going on in this house. So what we may seem from the outside to into people's lives is a lot different to what's really going on personally with them. So I don't mean any disrespect. Also, because this case is now being looked into, and it was announced in March of this year, and we're in March now, I think the 21st, Censor Day in the UK, so remember to do that. And on the 12th of March it was announced that in 2021 that this case would now have to be looked into, in this independent review of this case, because it's such an unsafe case. If it wasn't an unsafe case, there wouldn't have been 2 trials in this case already. That should have been it over with. There should be nothing else about this case that we should have to discuss apart from the facts of the case as they were. That's not the case here at all. A man could have been, and by the evidence, there's lots of issues around this case, that it could have been a miscarriage of justice. So it's a really important case, and when you speak about a case that you think is a miscarriage of justice, or they think there's a miscarriage of justice, enough that they would open up this independent review to look at the facts of this case, the full facts of this case all over again. It's important that we tell it honestly and truthfully, and so I don't mean any disrespect of anything I'm going to say throughout this video. It's just facts, or the facts as we know them, or we would assume them to be. It's very difficult in this case. There's lots of individuals in this case. When I speak about these people in this case, I also am not saying that they are the murderers or whatever. We don't know. I'm telling you about what's happened throughout this case, and so there's that, and I really feel for the family of these victims. I really do, the ones that's left. I really do feel for them. because this case has never gone away. But there's a reason why this has never gone away. And until really we have this independent review, and this independent review has to be so transparent, really, that there is a conclusion to this case. One, to give the victim's family some, release from this so they can move on. And I think this is why this has to be done. Plus, there's many reasons why I get really rolled up about miscarriages of justice. Because this case was a horrific murder, a massacre of people, of 4 people, including 2 children. If this man didn't do it, and there isn't a lot of evidence, or any evidence to say this man did it, if he didn't do it, then the person that done it is still out there, and has been for all these years, while an innocent man could have been put in prison for this. That perpetrator is still out there. You have now took away the liberty of someone that's done nothing wrong. You've allowed a perpetrator that can commit such crime as this to roam free amongst us. The cost of not one trial in this case, and then the second trial, and now an independent review into the South Wales Police, because this is a Welsh case. It's shocking, really. It should never have got this far. If the police had done their job right in the first place, this should not have been questionable. If you don't know, or you haven't got the evidence to put someone up for a murder, to have them charged with a murder, with strong enough evidence that this case can never ever be questioned, then you shouldn't have charged that man with murder. You can't have it all ways. The law is there. When we talk about on this channel law and justice, don't we? Truth and justice. Well, where's the truth if we're setting up people to be put into prison and there's an unsafe conviction here? Where's the truth? And I think if we don't have evidence, whether this man killed her or not, these people or not, if there's not enough evidence to prove it, to hold up in court, this is going to be the outcome, where you're going to continually have people questioning this conviction. And that's not right. It's not right on the public purse, it's not right on the victim's family, and it's not right on the person that may have been innocent of a crime. And so this is why I really wanted to do this case and try and do it where I show you the evidence of what was used to convict this man, and leave this up to you to decide what you think. Because really it comes down in the end to public opinion. Because this man, David Morris, or Di Morris, this has been going on, and this is going out in steam now. This is really speeding up now. The people, his children, his family, that have fought for 20 years and have said for 20 years, this man didn't do it. So I think we owe him that, and we owe the victim's family that, and we owe the victims themselves to get the right person for these crimes. Not the people that the police want to think done it. You can assume anything, but you have to be able to prove it. And in this day and age, and even in 1999, when this case happened, 27th of June 1999, we had DNA. We had evidence. And they should have gathered all that evidence. And if there wasn't enough evidence, then you can't prosecute. Because this is where you've left us now, 20 years later. Lots of money are now going to have to go into this. And because the new South Wales Police have had many issues with miscarriages of justice, this also is on their record. So again, this could mean why people think this is an unsafe conviction, because of everything else that's happened within the South Wales Police over the years. And there's been many of them. You've had the Cardiff 5, or I suppose if you may know it, the Cardiff 3. You've had Phil Skipper, who was convicted of his wife's murder. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. So, but there's many, many more. There's too many. I could actually do a case on just the miscarriages of justice, or the unsafe cases that have had to, and people have gone to prison, people have lost their liberty, their livelihoods through this, through these South Wales Police that have just seemed to be, thinking, in their mind, this is the person that's done this, and this is what, they're focused on this. It's tunnel vision. You can't have tunnel vision when you're investigating a crime. You have to look. You have to see where the evidence takes you. You can't make it up. You can't presume anything. It's either fact or it's not. And that's why miscarriages of justice really, really annoy me. But they mainly really worry me, because if this man didn't do this, there is a serious criminal out there. There's a serious psychopath out there that's still walking around. So this murder is the Clydach murders. It's Swansea. It's like a little valley in Swansea. So it's a Welsh case, and it's 1999. I think 26th and 27th of June, in the early hours of that morning, 1999. The victims were Doris Dawson, 80-year-old. She was had a disability. She had disabilities, and she was an invalid, and she was 18. She was living with her daughter, Mandy Power, who was 34 at the time of her death. And also she was living with her two granddaughters, and their names were Katie, and she was 10, and Emily, who was 8 at the time of their deaths. So this is a tragic murder, okay? So now the police believe that Doris, who was very well liked, an 80-year-old disabled woman, was laying in bed. Mandy and the children were out babysitting for somebody else. They got home, I think, about 11:45 time. But we'll start off with Doris. Now Doris was in bed, in her bedroom, probably asleep. It looks like she died where she laid. I think a neighbour did hear, though, a car pull up. Time is a bit sketchy, but they heard a car pull up, and then the light in the home go on that evening. So we don't really know what time. We're only speculating on what time that Doris was murdered. So then we have Doris laying in her bed, and the perpetrator has come into her bedroom. He has used a metal pole, but not a heavy metal pole. It's a metal pole, but it's not really heavy. It's not what you'd think, like a metal pole, but the damage this person done with this pole, he smashed her face in to pieces, and as he come up and continued to hit and hit and hit her, he hit the light bulb, and he knocked the electric out, because once he hit the light bulb, it took the power out of the house. So what this man done was, we don't know then if Doris was dead or dying on this bed, but he left her in that bedroom. He then went to the children's bedroom, and in the children's bedroom in the corner was a chair, just an ordinary chair, and on that chair there was a TV. He removed the TV from the bed, and he put it from the chair and put it on the bed. He then took the chair downstairs. He found where the fuse box was for the electric. He placed the chair, he stood on the chair, and he then fixed the electrics, and waited. So we know he had already attacked Doris, and he was there quite a while, because he'd took the chair down, fixed the electric, done all this. The mindset of this killer: you've just killed someone, or you're killing someone, she's dying or dead. Smash this person to pieces, her head and her skull, with a metal pole. You've took this chair, you fixed the electric, because you want Mandy to think everything's okay, don't you? And she comes back in the door with her two children. And then this man lays and waits. And I think when Mandy arrived home at, I think, 11:45 time, 11:45, 10:40, that's when they think she come back from the babysitting with her two children. We know they'd gone upstairs, because Mandy was first attacked in her bedroom, and then she was also attacked in the children's room, and then she was finally killed in her mother's bedroom and found on that floor. We know that one of the children, the youngest girl, was found dead in her bedroom. We also know that the 10-year-old, I think it was Katie, was found in the hallway. And again, they all three have had their heads really smashed in. I think Katie, who was in the hallway, her brain, they know that her brain was exposed by the damage she had, and that the metal pole had been prodded into that brain. So this perpetrator is somebody that can not only kill women, but can kill children. Had no fear of it. He had no fear of getting caught. He didn't run. Most perpetrators, when they're killing something and something goes wrong, like the electrics go or whatever, he would have gone. Most of them would have gone. That would have been enough to stop a perpetrator in their tracks and think, oh my gosh, hang on a minute. You know, one, because there's more evidence, he could have glass on him, he could have cut him, anything, he could have, you know, anything. Let alone go to another room, take a chair from that room downstairs, fix the electric, and sit and wait for your next victims. So we now know, don't we, that the others really were just collateral damage. And I hate to say that word, really, I do. But it's true. The actual prime victim here was Mandy Power. That's who this perpetrator wanted. And we can tell that by what he did to her after he killed her. He then ran a bath, you see. Again, not rushing to leave this home. He placed her in that bath, he washed her. So you're talking about someone with some strength. We already know he must have had strength because of the metal bar. It wasn't that heavy, but it created a lot of damage by the sheer force that they used to hit these people with. We now know that you can lift a dead body weight up or drag a dead body weight up, place it in a bath, wash that body, and then take that body back, lay that body out in a position, and I'm going to have to say it, where she was posed, totally naked, washed, her head smashed in, and then he inserted a sex toy into her vagina area and left it. He then placed a watch on her wrist, a man's watch on her wrist, and placed her there. So he's posed his body. Every part of this man, this criminal, this perpetrator, you can analyse. Why take the time? Why take the risk? Now, Mandy's house was a corner house, so it was either terraced or it was semi-detached. She had a neighbour. The risk you're taking to kill 4 people and then to stay in wait after you've killed one, to stay in wait for the next ones to come home, your target that you're after, you've waited. And he probably waited in Mandy's bedroom for her. That's probably where the first attack happened for her. But then, you then bathe her. You then take time to pose her, insert things into her body. This wasn't about sex, this murder. This was about humiliation. This was about control. Why place a man's watch on her arm? Why would you do it? Because we know it wasn't Mandy's. We know no one in that house had a watch like that. Everything this perpetrator has done, he's trying to tell you something, or he's trying to tell her something. He's trying to humiliate her. What's he saying by putting this man's watch on? We don't know, but there was a reason for it. Everything that was going through this perpetrator's mind, there was a reason for, and he was in no rush at all. No rush. So when we hear the neighbour heard a car pull up and someone get out and put the light on into Mandy's, and there was no car on the drive, so was he dropped off? Was this person dropped off? We don't know. Again, because really, when this perpetrator then left his home, he set about 4 fires all round the place to try and disguise the evidence. He wanted Mandy to be found. He wanted her to be humiliated. He could have burnt that house to the ground. He didn't. He'd done enough damage, I suppose, to where the fire brigade were called to make it look, I think maybe he was hoping that's what would have happened. But the major fire was not upstairs, really, where he'd killed these people. It was in the kitchen. And he started the main one in the kitchen. Little fires, 4 of them, but the main one was in the kitchen. So we now have these neighbours now calling, the fire service, because they see a fire. You have neighbours, you can see this house on fire or the kitchen on fire, smoking, So they've called them and the fire brigade have come. Of course they have, there's a fire. No one's realised in here that this was an arson. No one's realised at this point, and nor would they realise, as far as they're concerned, it's an accidental fire, probably started in the kitchen. Well, even electrical fires start in kitchens. And so the fire brigade have done their job. They've then put out this fire, and as they put out this fire, the fire brigade have had to go in there, and they found bodies. They found, you know, the first body they found was a 10-year-old in the hallway. Now, you'd think she was trying to get out, wouldn't you? So you can't blame the fire brigade for causing any damage to the evidence. They didn't know there was evidence, and if they hadn't put out that fire, there would have been less evidence than there was already. So they did their job, and as they was taking these bodies out, I think they found the kids first, and they took them out and laid them out on the grass in the garden, and they also then took out Mandy's body. But as they was taking them out and trying to work on them because they thought they had smoking inhalation damage, they realised, especially by the time that Mandy's body was brought out, hang on a minute, there's issues here. These people's heads are smashed in. Mandy's come out, been carried out, with the sex toy still inserted in her, naked, with her head and face smashed in. The body of Doris, by that stage, was still upstairs in her bed. They hadn't found her body yet. So then they knew there was issues. Now this is where this case starts to take a turn to where you could say this is where this case starts to become unsafe for a real prosecution here. So we have this now, a crime scene. So when there's fire brigade and ambulance, there's also the police now being called, isn't there? So we know now that this is now first a fire, the people, it was a fire in the fire brigade, and then the ambulance come and they take the bodies out, and then it's realised that there is an actual, this is now a crime scene. This is a murder, arson scene. We had now this police officer that was there at the crime scene, and his name was Stuart Lewis. Now Stuart Lewis at the time was an acting inspector. So you would assume, wouldn't you, you're acting inspector, you want to now show that you can do your job and you're going to do it correctly. He was at this crime scene for about 10 minutes only. Even though he knew this was a crime scene now, the ambulance people, ambulance officers have said, the fire brigade have said, they all know it. Now everyone steps away from these bodies because they know something's happened. Also now the house becomes a crime scene, doesn't it? But you see, Stuart Lewis did not protect that crime scene. He didn't secure it. Actually didn't tell anybody it was a murder scene at all. I think he was there about 10 minutes. He went back to his station and he mentioned to nobody that 4 people, including 2 children, had been murdered. No one. Then he loses his pocketbook or his logbook. I mean, listen, gross misconduct anyway, straight away for this man. You're a police officer. You're the first one at the scene. You're there. You don't secure a crime scene. Why? Why wouldn't you secure a crime scene? You want to contain that evidence as best you can, can't you? That's what most police officers would do. That's the investigators, what I know, would do. But then you go back to your police station like nothing's happened. You don't tell someone. You don't do anything about starting a criminal investigation into the murders of 4 people. You do nothing. You lose your book, your logbook on that night. That should have described your details, where you'd been, what you'd been doing. That was lost. So that's suspicious anyway. It really is. There's some suspicion there, and that's where I believe this case then fell apart from that minute. There was things in this case then that anything after that really fell apart. This case was never safe. The minute you do not secure a crime scene, the minute you have a police officer that then loses evidence or doesn't protect evidence, and then you find out that this person, or the brother of this person, the twin brother of this person, is married to a woman called Alison Lewis, and she was in a homosexual relationship with Mandy Power. And that's the issue here that I don't think anybody can get over. I think this is what's opened this whole thing for years. 2 trials have been in this case, and we'll go through them in a minute. There's issues here which makes this look like a cover-up, and it may not have been. But what you've done by doing this, by losing your logbook, by not reporting that it's a crime, by not securing a crime scene, you've incriminated yourself, really, haven't you? And in the end, I think 3 of these people, Alison Lewis, her husband, Stephen Lewis, and his brother, Stuart Lewis. Now, Alison and Stephen, this married couple, was arrested under suspicion of the murder, and I think Stuart Lewis was also arrested at one point for preventing the course of justice. So listen, there was issues here, but then we have to think about now what else is in this case as evidence. What could be used as evidence? We had eyewitness testimony of somebody on from that night. So you had this taxi driver that was driving down, I think, Further Road. It was a short walk actually from Kelvin Road where these murders took place, and this was between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. when he noticed 2 men walking down the street or along the pavement at that point. And he said it struck him that they were very, very similar, these people, very, very similar in look. And he said both had dark cropped hair. When he heard about the murders the next day, he did say that he called the police to tell them about it, but no one bothered to return his calls at all. He said, they took his details. He told them, they said they wrote it down. If they took his details, they said that they'd get someone onto him, but no one ever called him back. No one. It was like it didn't matter. No one wanted to know. 2 weeks later, the driver says that he called the police again to say, that he'd seen these men, and again that no one had called him back. And he said he knew the identity of these people because he'd seen these 2 people on this police, when they was charged for a suspicion of murder. And he said he had identified them as Stuart and Stephen Lewis. But again, that wasn't then taken into account. And again, this man was never called to even give evidence. He was never called to give evidence. He specifically says he was 100%, and he rang the next day after the murder. This isn't someone that's rang up a year later or 2 years later or 3 years later. He rang the day after the murder, described these people, and was never spoken to. His evidence was never took seriously, even though there was another witness that did see the person very, very closely. So on the night of the murder, I think it was Nicola Williams. Now, she was driving in Kelvin Road in the early hours of the 27th. So we knew that the murders had took place either early hours of Saturday morning into early hours of Sunday morning on June 1999. And she also thinks that she saw Stephen Lewis near Kelvin Road at around 2:30 a.m. This woman pulled up to somebody. She pulled up because this man was walking home. My God, I don't know how she would have done it. I would have never done it. We're talking about 1999, I suppose, in these villages, that's what you do. But I'm telling you, in London, you'd never be pulling up to anyone. So she stopped her car thinking maybe he needed help, and she looked at him directly in the eye. She looked at him. She saw him. Because with me, I'm not the greatest with eyewitness testimonies. It depends how it is. It depends how quick you've seen him for. Again, what the light was like. But she says she's pulled up. She was going to offer this person a lift. She wanted to know if they was okay. And she described this person. And then she went to the police station and she done an e-fit of this person. An e-fit of him. Described him Then she picked this man out in a lineup, the same man. And when you look at her e-fit, and I'll be putting them both up, you make up your mind who you think she saw that night. But again, her evidence was discarded again. And the e-fit that she did, and then she even, where she had in the lineup, where she chose someone out of a lineup, that e-fit was never put out to the public. So we have to ask ourselves again, why? Why wasn't it? Because the e-fit that she put up was very similar to the Lewis brothers. Actually, more than similar. But again, you can't rely on just that, because a lot of people, and we've had this, haven't we, when we talk about, you know, other crimes that we've done, where people have said they look like that, and they were so sure it was them, and some people look so alike. And you know, Napa case has got that, where it was the wrong identity. So you can't discard somebody else. You can't think just because this looks like someone. And then she described what they was wearing. She said it's like a bomber jacket, a black jacket, looked like an old police jacket. That's how she described what the person was wearing, carrying stuff under his arm. So listen, I'm not saying that these people did it, because they was actually, when they was under suspicion of murder and, you know, preventing the course of justice, they was let off with insufficient evidence, because there is insufficient evidence in this, because the crime scene was one damaged by the perpetrator. The crime scene was left unattended, not reported until the Monday, lost his pocketbook, did nothing to secure this home. So when you're talking about evidence and the reliance of evidence, then there is none, really. Now also in this evidence, or in this home that they'd found, there was a gold chain. And the gold chain was a distinctive gold chain, and it had a break in it where the person had put in, and I think they said it was David Morris's, where he'd put in a silver link chain to hold it together. But my issue when you find a gold chain and you have got no other forensic evidence on that, only part of DNA that was on that was Mandy Power's. That's the only part of the chain that had any DNA on it. That was hers, and that was found in the mother's room on the floor, covered in blood. And that's one of the things that they put against him. Now, you know, as I've said about David Morris before, he was charged with this murder because of all this evidence. He was first looked at, I think, after this part of this evidence with this Lewis brothers, and that fell apart. But I think before we actually go on to the real case of David Morris, I think we need to look at the background of Mandy Power, because I've just said that Mandy Power was in a relationship, a sexual relationship with Alison Lewis, the wife of one of the police officers. Now, I think Stephen Lewis was a police officer in another town, but Stuart Lewis, this acting inspector, was the police officer in Clydach at that time of that murder. So this makes these three very relevant. Now, I've said before, I don't like to speak ill of the dead. I think when you're looking at a case and you're looking at a miscarriage or potential miscarriage of justice case, you have to then look at the lifestyles of people. Now, we know from Alison Lewis's statement that she was sleeping next to her husband, so she says on the night of the murder, she was with him all night. That also then tells us that she was in a relationship, a loving sexual relationship with her husband, at the same time as being in a sexual relationship with Mandy Power. We know that because really she stated it. She says that Mandy Power, you know, they were in love. But you see, Mandy Power isn't here anymore, is she? Mandy Power was murdered, as was her two children and her mother. So again, it's only hearsay. And the prosecution, of course, want you to believe. They really want you, and they want to portray an image of Mandy and of Alison, of this loving relationship. But was it such an intense loving relationship? And I think Alison says they had sex that morning not once, not twice, but 3 times. Really? But that's you saying that. And the thing is, with the sex toy that was inserted into Mandy Power when she was taken out of the home after her death, the only DNA that was on that sex toy was that of Alison. That's the only real DNA that was found there. Now listen, DNA, when you're talking about sex toys and stuff like that, and I think it was vaginal DNA as well, maybe they hadn't washed. Maybe they haven't washed the sex toy. You don't know. We don't know. But that was the only DNA found on it. I don't think that's enough evidence to say that she had done anything. But there's other issues going on here. And I want to get back to this relationship about Mandy and Alison. Because when someone is deceased, it's very easy to say all these sort of things, isn't it? That we were in this loving relationship. Well, this was a secret relationship. It was an affair. You're saying that your husband didn't know. He said he didn't know you was in this relationship. You have Mandy Power also. At this time, we know that she had already slept with or had a relations with Di Morris or David Morris, because he said it and she had told other people. But I don't know how this relationship was this loving as Alison wants to come across with. You see, Mandy, she had said to people, and including Alison, that she had cancer, and she would get Alison to drop her off at appointments, you know, the hospital for this cancer. Well, Mandy Power never had cancer. So what was Mandy Power up to? Is it because she wanted time away, maybe, from Alison? Because they seemed to spend every minute together. And as Alison said to you on that morning, you know, the morning before she died, she had slept with her 3 times. You know, how much of a willing participant was Mandy in this? Did she really want it? Was this all what it was meant to look like? Because why would Mandy Power lie about having cancer and get this woman to drop her off at her appointments? Was it to give her a break? Was she seeing somebody else? Would this now bring in some other potential suspects into this relationship? It could do. Did she know, because because Alison was married, that maybe she was frustrated and thought, if I pretend to be ill, Alison may leave her husband and come to me? You don't know. You see, we don't know what's going on in Mandy Power's mind at the time, but something was. To lie to say you have cancer, something was going on. And that's a real potential issue here that we have to look at in this case. Because, you know, you've been murdered now. So everything that Mandy Power did or said, or her behaviour that was different to normal, and this was different to her normal, she was a nurse by trade, you know, why was she lying? Why did she lie? And there's these people, this happy relationship between Alison then and Mandy. Once Alison found out about this, and it was only a few months before that, it was all over. I mean, the woman was absolutely heartbroken. She said she couldn't believe what Mandy had said. She felt used and stuff. I think Alison Lewis felt more about this relationship more than Mandy did. And I think Alison then realised that when she found that out. So can you believe, and I'm saying this in the nicest possible way, can you believe Alison Lewis, a woman that was having an affair anyway, a woman that is telling you this was this great loving relationship, and you've got the prosecution pushing to you that this was a loving, honest, open relationship? No, it wasn't honest and open. They were having an affair. People were lied to. Some people don't like being lied to. They just don't. And so anyone in this whole scenario here, even people we don't know of, because we don't know who else Mandy was seeing, are potential suspects in this case. I don't think this part of Mandy's life was looked into enough. I really don't. This should have gone wider. There's reasons here. If Alison's husband, Stephen, didn't know about the affair, that would eliminate him, wouldn't it? She was only at a barbecue a couple of days before she was married. We also know that a couple of weeks before that Stephen Lewis had gone up to her door and was screaming at Mandy about keep away from my wife. But we don't know if he was screaming at Mandy because of the harm she had caused Alison, the distress she had caused Alison by lying about having cancer. Do we? We don't know. Or is it because he knew about the affair or found out about the affair and was that pissed off? He's gone to her and told her in no uncertain terms, keep away from my wife. We don't know. We don't know because Mandy's not here to tell us, nor is any of her family here to tell us that what happened. But I think what brings these people into this murder or under suspicion of murder was the actions of the brother, the police officer, the investigating officer at that time. That's what brought them into this. And because there was no evidence or not enough evidence then to do anything, they were released. Now Alison, a few days after Mandy Power's murder, tried to commit suicide by jumping out of her bedroom window. She said she wanted to be with Mandy. So listen, I don't know, and I'm not saying that these people did it, and I'm not saying they didn't. I'm saying we don't know. But then, if we can say that about them, because they're police officers and everything we know about them, what makes now someone like David Morris or Di Morris the prime suspect here? What changed it from this? What's the difference? What's the evidence? Let's have a look at that. Okay, let's look at Di Morris or David Morris. Now, it is said or written, or however you want to put it, this is not my words, these are other people's words, because I don't know this man at all. I think I'd like to meet him though and interview him, so if any of his family are interested, please let me know. So they're saying, the police are saying, and the prosecution and all this is saying, that Di Morris was a violent thug with a strong history of domestic violence towards women. Okay, that's fine. If that's the case, then that's what he was. But that does not make him a murderer, does it? At the time of the murder, David Morris was living with a woman called Mandy Jewell. Now, Mandy Jewell, here we go again with another link. Mandy Jewell and Mandy Power were friends. They were friends. Now, also, David Morris had said that he'd already had an affair or was sleeping with or having relations with Mandy Power. He also didn't like the relationship between his girlfriend, then girlfriend Mandy Jewell, because I don't know why, that he just didn't want the relationship, them two relationships to get together. Listen, people can be funny. If this man wanted to sleep with Mandy Power, he wouldn't have wanted these two to be friends, would he? If he'd already had relationships with Mandy Power, he wouldn't have wanted these two people to be friends. Or if he wanted to sleep, or was sleeping with her even at that point, he wouldn't have wanted his girlfriend, then girlfriend Mandy Jewell, to be anywhere near this girl, would he? Because people don't want to get caught. If they're having an affairs, they don't want to get caught. Now don't forget, we've also had the affair that Mandy was having with Angela. So, oh, Alison, sorry. So there's a lot going on in this case. This widens open this case now to other potential suspects and things that were going on. Now, in this point, David Morris had said things about Mandy. He had said things about Mandy Power, derogatory things. He couldn't stand her and stuff. But this could have been a ruse, couldn't it? This could have been where he was trying to not show that he liked her or was having relationships with her, because people lie all the time. Now, it's said, or it has been said, that Mandy was frightened of him. She didn't like him. She thought he was a bit overpowering and she was scared of him. But Mandy is not here to give them accounts. Again, it's hearsay. No one in Mandy's home is alive, are they, to give the actual account of what's happened here. So again, It's unreliable evidence. It's hearsay, really. It cannot be proven in court at all. So really, whatever they say about David Morris and Mandy Power's relationship, or how she felt about him, they can't prove it. No one knows. So he was in this pub on this night. He was drinking. He says he had about 8 pints of beer. So he's admitting, okay, he's drunk 8 pints of beer. And I think he was in this New Inn pub. And a witness said that he left about 23:30, so 11:30 p.m. at night. The prosecution also tried to say that he took amphetamines. I mean, this is unfounded. For one, he wasn't arrested anywhere near this time, so for them to say that Di Morris or David Morris has always denied them allegations that he took any amphetamines at all, any drugs at all, that would have been done anything. But he did say he had about 8 pints of beer. He was intoxicated. He'd had a row, I think, early on in the pub in the evening with his girlfriend, then Mandy Jewel. She had left, and then he started to walk home. They say about 11:30 when he left this pub. Now, what the prosecution want you to believe is that this man, in this intoxicated state, was walking through this sort of, I don't know if you've ever been to Wales, but I wouldn't walk anywhere in Wales because, hilly, especially when you're in a valley. But they said he did. They said it was about 15 minutes away, around the corner from Kelvin Road. You've got a man now who's intoxicated. They've said he's walked there. He's then committed all these murders because at that time, really, they believe, I think, that even the mother was killed at the same time. That's not true, actually. It's impossible. And by the evidence now, it shows that she was murdered first. And the reason we know that is because of the light that was damaged, the electric box that was fixed, and also the blood splatter. So when you've had the chair removed and the TV removed from the bedroom, the blood splatter was only on that. It wasn't on the chair at all. So there are ways they can tell of when it happened, what happened, and how it looked. And there was no blood spatter on that chair. So the chair was not in that room at the time of their murders. So did David Morris have time in his intoxicated state? And even if he had took extra drugs or whatever, it would have been worse, but he denies it wasn't. But could he have walked to the Mandy Power's home and killed them all in that short time in his intoxicated state? Could then he have changed as he blew the electricity, could he then have rewired the house? Why would he have? Why would you have, if you've been there anyway and you've done your thing? Could he have done that? Would he have had time to do that, get to there? Because we know Mandy didn't get in till about 11:45, 10 to 12. Did he have time? He only left this pub about 11:30 time, and it would have took 15 minutes at least to walk if he was in a normal state, probably more to walk if he was in an intoxicated state. Wales is not the easiest place to walk around. Plus, though, we are now discarding the evidence or so-called evidence which was not admissible, really, about this car that had driven up earlier on in the evening, and then the light was switched on. Then it couldn't have been David Morris, because David Morris was in this New Inn pub at the time with many people. So it's like the police have discarded that bit because that doesn't fit their tunnelled vision. So then we have David Morris and this prosecution saying that this is what he's done. He's then killed all these people. He's then washed this body. He's then sectioned this body out and put it on show as if to humiliate her. He's put a watch on her. Where did the watch come from? Because it wasn't David's at all. So where did the watch come from? There was a chain found there, a gold chain found there, and David Morris did have a gold chain, and that chain was lost some while ago, and the chain was a distinctive chain, and it was this chain that had the gold little loop on, a little silver loop that someone else had put on it. He'd put on it, but as I've said before, the chain only had the DNA of Mandy Power on it. It didn't have the DNA of him. Yes, it was found in the mother's bedroom, in the grandmother's bedroom, on the floor where she died, covered in blood. But he did have relations with her. He was having a relationship at some point with Mandy. At any point, this chain could have been left there, dropped off. You've already heard, haven't we, from Alison, that she had sex 3 times that morning with Mandy Power. This emotional, adventurous sex. Well, maybe that's what Mandy Power was into, and maybe this is where then Di Morris had lost these chain. He did. He could have. I don't think actually he even thought about the chain until it started being mentioned about being found as evidence and being put out on the TV as this specific chain, gold chain that was found. And I think Di Morris, to tell you the truth, or David Morris, got very worried that he was going to be fitted up for this murder. Listen, I think with David Morris, and we have to be quite clear about it, is that you're talking about someone that had a muddled story. One, he was intoxicated. He said he was going to walk to his mother's, and then he was going to walk to the girlfriend's, and and then he finally got home to the girlfriend, and we'll read her statement in a little while about what she says when he got home. I think with Di Morris, where it comes to this evidence of this necklace, this gold chain that was left there, if he had said he'd never had relations with her, or if it wasn't known that he had had relations with her, then of course the gold chain would have been of much more relevance than what it was then, because he could have left that gold chain in that property at any time. Could have fell off and lost it. He's lost it. He could have said to Mandy at some point, I think I've lost my chain. Maybe she thought, well, I'll give it next time I see you. You don't know. But it didn't even have his DNA on it, you see. So she washed it, cleaned it up, kept it, put it away. It had her DNA on it. But because David Morris started then to try and lie, he tried to lie his way out of why this. He even said, I think, to his nephew or his cousin, oh no, it's not my chain, I didn't have a chain like that. And they said, but you did. You did have a chain like that, and you did. He tried to start lying his way out, because I think he thought, they're going to fit me up for this. Or he could have thought, I'm going to be caught for this murder, because he actually did it. So I'm not saying either way here. I'm saying this could have been, this is in hindsight, this is in theories of what could have happened. Because people, you see, when they are under suspicion of something, by police officers or by police forces, well known at that time for miscarriages of justice, for interrogating people, not in the best way, to be putting evidence across. Now, people have already known, hadn't they, that the police officers and the girlfriend of Mandy and the husband of her were automatically eliminated, weren't they, from this inquiry quite early on. They were charged with suspect, being suspicion of murder, but they weren't charged with anything really, were they? There was no evidence against them. They were let go. So now they're looking for somebody else, and now all of a sudden Di Morris then starts being looked at. We also then have a police officer that doesn't know Di Morris. He was an off-duty police officer. This is what's been said, that heard a conversation that of how David Morris was speaking about Mandy Power and how he wanted to kill her and stuff. It's hearsay. This is all hearsay. This is all circumstantial evidence. I mean, this could have been anyone talking about Mandy, couldn't it? Or they may not have talked about her at all. Then I hear other evidence as when he was being questioned, not when he was being questioned, but when he was arrested, and he's the on-duty solicitor, or the person that comes in to talk to you. Usually it's the on-duty solicitor. Will come in, and that's a privileged conversation then. You go into a separate room with no police officers, no tape recordings, no nothing, and you would usually then sit there and you talk to your client about, first of all, the process, because you don't know them, you've never met them, this is the first time you've ever spoke to these people, so it takes a good 10-15 minutes. And to tell you the truth, I mean, let's be honest here, we all know there's no money in criminal law, and these on-duty solicitor, these police station reps, they don't get a lot of money, so you're not rushing here, alright? Let's be honest. There's no lawyer going to tell you they're rushing here when it comes to criminal law. There's a process here that has to be done. You would speak to David Morris about you, your firm, what you can do, what they've got, you know, the process of what's going to happen before you actually even speak about the crime itself or the crime he's been charged with himself. But what you certainly wouldn't expect is that when you're in a police station and you're having a confidential conversation with your client, that a police officer would then turn on the recording equipment and record you, but only to say, sorry, it was by accident, I was just testing the room. And then to falsify the times on that statement that they've made, thinking that if they say it's a bit later, that you're going to be caught out. None of that evidence should have been admissible in court. That was absolutely evidence that was falsified. It was absolutely privileged information. I don't know what these police officers were doing. I really don't. I really don't. So all this stuff makes me really angry because, you know, there's a system here. You know, there's a system between the client and the person that is there to protect that person's right. You cannot take away someone's rights because you want to fit them up for a crime. You really can't. And then to try and use that evidence in court is absolutely disgraceful. It's disgraceful, really, because you shouldn't need to be doing that. You shouldn't need to be. Now, David Morris has never ever admitted doing this crime to anybody. To anybody. Certainly not to the on-duty solicitor at that time. He didn't at all. He has never said that he's committed this crime. Actually, for the past 20 years, all he said is, I have not done this crime. So then we have to look at these other evidence. So then we have this chain, don't we, that they've said. So we've said about the chain, no DNA evidence of David Morris on it at all. Then we've had a sock that they found in this house as well at this time. Again, I keep saying about forensic evidence. So what they did, they tested the sock because they believed that the killer took it off or used that sock as on that bar to hurt them people and kill them people. So he used it to stop putting fingerprints there. So it was DNA'd, but what they didn't do was they DNA'd the outside of the sock. They didn't DNA the inside. They need to do that, and that's, I think, what's going to come soon. When we add up this evidence, where was the watch? Where did the watch come from? David Morris didn't have a watch. Where's the watch come from that was left on the arm of a woman that was murdered? Did he have enough time to get from this pub and do these murders? Was he compos mentis enough to do these murders? To fix the electrics, to replace the electrics, to sit and wait? Because this is what the prosecution want you to believe. They want you to believe that he was enraged with Mandy. He wanted to have sex with Mandy. That's what he wanted. He'd already had sex with Mandy. He'd already had it. And even if he wanted to have sex that night, he wouldn't have had to kill her to do it. They'd already done it. So the people that are saying, this is what the prosecution's trying to tell you, they're trying to say to you, this is our evidence against David Morris. Circumstantial evidence. There is no forensic evidence at all that links him to this crime at all. None. So without the forensic evidence, and there would have been, this man would have been covered in blood. He would have been covered in blood. No one saw a witness, no witnesses anywhere saw anyone who resembled at all David Morris in that vicinity. They saw two people, and some saw one person that resembled these brothers. That's who they saw. There was no eyewitness that has seen David Morris at all. Not one. Not one. So you have this, the prosecution's job is to portray to the people, and in both these cases, and there's been 2 trials here, we'll get back to these trials, of David Morris for this murder. On the second trial, they used the same evidence as the first. So they've swayed the jury with this evidence. They took out evidence. They've also used this public interest immunity, or PLL, to only is to withhold evidence that the prosecution have for the defence. They've withheld it. They've withheld so much evidence. Why? Now listen, you can always withhold little bits of evidence under this. Of course you can. Okay? Of course you can. But the amount of evidence that they've withheld, it's so unusual. Really, I've never seen anything like it. So I think if this investigation or this inquiry now is going to look into this, we need to look into that as well. What is in that information that they've got, this public interest immunity to withhold back evidence from the defence? We need to see what's in that. People need to know. Now, there may be evidence that may help incriminate David Morris. There may be. You don't know. Or there may be stuff that's going to help, eliminate him. I wouldn't have thought that there's going to be stuff in this that's going to help prosecute him. So university lecturer and journalist Brian Fortin is one of the founders of a crime and justice research centre at the University of Winchester, and he studied this Clydach murders for literally, I think, over 10 years. Really, he's really looked into this case. Now, he talks about the timeline. The timeline doesn't fit here. For all the reasons that we've just spoke about, the timeline doesn't fit. And it's critical, really, that we understand that the first victim was Doris, the grandmother, because that takes Morris out of the equation totally, doesn't it? He wouldn't have had enough time to do all that in wait then for Mandy and these children to get home. That alone eliminates him from this crime, really. So the reason that we believe that Doris died first, there's two areas to this actually, and it's very confident that she died first. The first is about the murder weapon. Now, the murder weapon was this pole used by, the family had traces of the blood on it from Mandy and the two girls, but it didn't have any blood on it from Doris, suggesting that he used the metal bar later and removed traces of her, so he'd cleaned that first, because he was waiting. He had time. He cleaned it. The second thing is about the light being took out by the swings that hit her. So we know that the top lights especially would have been knocked out. We know now that he had time. He wouldn't have had time to do that if all four were in the home alive. Someone would have got out. So we know now that Doris, and this is the reason why we know it, because Doris was killed first, giving him time when the rest of the house was empty to fix the electrics, to lay in wait for Mandy and her two children to come home. The timeline does not fit. It really doesn't. So when you look at all this timeline and the evidence, you've got someone intoxicated, someone that could do this, have the strength to do this, to murder these people, lie in wait, fix electrics, killed 3 other people, bathed Mandy, clean her up, put a watch on which no one knows where it came from, insert a sex toy inside her with DNA from somebody else, but you've left no DNA. Really. Let's just talk about his alibi, okay, for this murder. So his alibi that Morris had been drinking in this new inn on the edge of Clydach, and he said that he was wandering the streets for hours until about, and I think getting home about 3 a.m. He said, as I said before, he was deciding whether to go to his mother's or back to his girlfriend's, because he'd had this row with a girlfriend. And when and then he claims that his girlfriend Mandy actually let him into the house. Mandy initially told the police that she had arrived home between 10:30 and 11 o'clock in the evening, and she didn't let him in. But we know he was in the park until 11:30 anyway. I think that they relied on also with him is just because his alibi was a bit shifty, he couldn't really remember, to tell the truth, and you don't know, do you? We don't know what he was doing at 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't know whether he was at Mandy Power's or not, really, and this is what this evidence, hopefully this new evidence and everything else that's coming out, this inquiry, will show us about that. I think with this new, when you have DNA evidence and stuff, and I think there's lots now that they could probably do more with, because we have more technology now. We need more minute traces to find something, but you know, there really isn't any DNA here at all. Okay, so let's sum it up. There is no DNA evidence or fingerprint evidence linking Morris to 9 Kelvin Road at all. None. There is no witnesses that can place him near that property, in it or around it, there on that night of the murders at all. The thing is with this case, it's circumstantial, and I don't know how this case is going to end, to tell the truth. I really don't, because I think it was a shambles from the beginning. That, you know, when you have a crime scene that's not protected, when you have someone that's been charged for a crime with no evidence, you know, only really, really low circumstantial evidence, when you have timelines that don't fit, I don't know how it's going to end, and I really hope that this new inquiry that they're doing, which needs to be transparent, really, to find out what really happened here, if we're ever really find out. But what this should do, this should give make this final, this case. Even they have evidence that David Morris, or Di Morris, did this murder. Clear, specific evidence to say that he did it. Without using all the stuff they've used and stuff to build up a prosecution's case of circumstantial evidence. And so the jury needs to be aware, I think, when any of these cases, is that there is other suspects here. Mandy had a life outside what they was told, what they knew. There's issues here. There could have been other potential suspects here that wasn't looked into. Di Morris lied, okay, to save himself from, I think, the persecution that he knew was coming. He knew it. He knew when these police officers and Alison Lewis wasn't prosecuted for that murder, who would they go for? Who would they go for? They automatically went for him because they found a chain, a gold chain. What they said was his, and he admitted in the end it was his, but not with any DNA on it at all. It could have been in that home for a very long time. Yes, David Morris is stupid because he was trying to get himself out of something that I don't think he actually did. Not really, because the timeline doesn't fit. There's stuff here that doesn't fit. The person that killed these people was after Mandy. They wanted to humiliate. They wanted to hurt. I don't know if he would have done that. I don't know. We don't know. So let's hope this new evidence, that or this new inquiry brings out all this evidence, all the evidence that the prosecution tried to withhold, whether it convicts Morris or not. It needs to come out, because this case needs to be finalised. Really finalised. Because what a shambles this really is. And these cases are not doing South Wales Police any good at all, are they? And South Wales Police, and I have to say it, have done some great stuff. They caught serial killers, they've done some great stuff. But there's certain officers. But people need to change the way they investigate a murder crime, because you have to get it right. You have to get it right early. Take your blinkers off. Stop having this tunnel vision, because you assume it's someone that you try and make the evidence about them. That's not how you solve a crime. And I think when you look at things like Robert Napper's case and that, of how other people can be murdered because of your lack of investigation, because your tunnel vision of someone. If there is no evidence, in this murder, and there's no evidence that will link Morris to this murder, then he should be released. Now they're probably going to release him anyway and say that it's insufficient evidence. That would leave this case open, so they wouldn't class it as a miscarriage of justice. They do that quite a lot, because I don't think there is enough evidence here in this really to convict anybody of this murder, because it started from that night when that crime scene was not secured, and the failings very early on, and the failings of the police to investigate this in the way it should have been investigated thoroughly, took everyone into account, not just always some people that may look and may act suspicious. It's about people we don't know. It's about the investigation that brings up other people that may have done this crime. So this has been the Clydach murders. We don't know, innocent or guilty. I'll leave it up to you. We're going to have to wait and see. I mean, this inquiry's just started. I mean, it was advertised the 12th, wasn't it, of 2021, 12th of March 2021. We could wait a year, 2 years to see what's going on. But I'll keep you updated on this case. And as I say in this case, I mean no disrespect to anybody in this case. I'm not saying someone did it or they didn't do it. We just have to wait and see. And we have to wait and see what the real evidence, if there is any, says about this case. So thank you for watching. You know what to do. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Leave your messages, everything you're going to do. You can follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. You can also catch this case on Let's Have a Chat About Murder on Spotify. So, thank you for watching, my partners in crime, and I shall speak to you all soon. Bye bye.